Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Social Club at the End of the World. On this episode, we're focusing on a new story for humanity, which includes collective intelligence. And we were just kind of chatting before we started recording. First, let me just introduce everyone super briefly by first name and city. We've got Adam in Olympia, Washington. We've got Dan in Chicago. We've got Jamie in Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Mike in Calgary, Canada. And we've got Miles in Calgary, Canada. And I'm Jamin, joining from Whidbey Island, Washington. And Dan was just making a really good point. So if you want to give us kind of a recap of that, Dan, I think that would be a great place to start off. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I was talking about the kind of sociopathic or psychopathic socialization in our culture, which people are just simply born into at this point and raised and socialized. And I was bringing up an example from my own working career. You know, when I was working at the Chicago Department of Public Health in about, I think it was 08 or 09, there was a tremendous infusion of funds, federal funds, to prepare for a bioterror attack or something. Maybe it wouldn't be bioterror, but it would be a serious epidemic. And I remember that a number of things about it which makes the point. One thing was that people who were expected to participate in the effort to take care of that emergency would say things like, when it happens, I'm going to be out of town with my family. In other words, I'm just going to get off the ship. The other thing was that the organization, Chicago Department of Public Health, City of Chicago, was not willing to actually talk to people in a realistic way. It's very similar. So what they did was, there was a lot of kind of initial meetings where, examples were given of what we would have to do when we were assigned to one of these triage type centers. For example, they used anthrax as the agent, the only real serious bioterror agent which was not contagious, which I found to be a problem back then. And then they told everybody that if you show up, we're going to give you medications for you and your families, to induce you, to give you an incentive. But the problem with that is that, what about when the agent is something which is very contagious and you really don't have any medications available to treat it? Then what? Well, maybe in that situation, you ought to allow people to have insurance. So if somebody's going to volunteer or be ordered to do it, which ultimately that's what would have happened, that they have some life insurance that they can have for their family.
Okay. If I can interject, I think that you were onto something. You were just really on fire with something, which is the sociopathic, psychopathic mentality. Now you're basically talking about a practical solution. We are so far from practical solutions right now.
Well, here
sociopathic, psychopathic mentality. So that's what I'd like to kind of get back to.
Okay, let me. I hope I did tangent off too much, but the thing is with the sociopathic or psychopathic mind, this means that a person is fundamentally motivated by strictly the accrual of power and money, wealth and power. And they have a basic, they see the world consisting of individuals who are predators and the mass of people really who are just simply victims, they're prey. And so when you break down the world into predator-prey, and one of the points I was making, perhaps, and I don't think it really it may make a difference in the sense that men are more biologically predisposed to act as a predator in a lot of situations, but women have the same kind of mindset very, very frequently in terms of the accrual of money and power, however they go about it. But this contempt, the contempt in the mind of the sociopath or the psychopath for the average person is very important, because they then feel that whatever befalls the victims, that's their own doing. They're losers, essentially, and we have that word loser in our culture. It's common. The other thing is, and this is maybe even more important, the predator, the psychopathic or sociopathic predator, assumes that if their victims were able to assume their role, they would do nothing different. In other words, when you protest and you cry about your condition and how unfair it is, if you were in my position, the predator, you'd be acting exactly the same way, and I know that. You'd be treating me in a very similar fashion. So don't expect me to be that concerned for you. Now, this is something which is rampant in our socialization and in our culture. And it's just one manifestation of humanity. Again, as I pointed out, people are perfectly willing to sacrifice for the good of the group. Men do it all the time. They get inducted into the military, and they're willing to make a sacrifice, risk their lives. We see it in other, first responders, police, fire personnel, etc. People are willing to do it, but they have to be encouraged by the culture, by the group, to behave in that way. And the final thing I'll just say is, which I brought up before, is that when you had Fukushima in Japan, and that disaster, of course, is still going on, but when you had it, the first group of, I guess you call them first responders, the individuals who had the engineering skills or other skills necessary to perhaps do something about it, these were senior in terms of age. I don't recall exactly how, what the age was, but the idea was that they could, they've lived a life and they could sacrifice before having younger individuals who had the same skill sets. So I think when we're looking at climate change, we need to be able to understand that this is a serious threat. Everybody needs to do their part, whether that's just supporting actions to be taken or to stepping up to the plate if their skill sets call for it, and be willing to make a sacrifice. And those who are unwilling to do so, like, again, there's kind of in the culture, we say, okay, well, he's
you're going to solutions now. You've talked for probably about 8 minutes or so. I want to, but I think the main point that you're on, the sociopathic, psychopathic mind, that's something I'd like to comment on, because until we realize our own addiction or susceptibility to addiction to wealth and to power, I don't think we're going to be able to treat it very well. I think we need to take kind of an AA approach of acknowledging the problem we have. I'd like to share the screen. Dan, you and I both are graduates of UC Berkeley. There's an article here that cites a study done at UC Berkeley, which I'll get to in a moment. But just to briefly review it, and I'll send out the link to everyone, or I'll post it to this video. If someone could remind me to do that, I'd appreciate it, by the way. Anyway, the article is, "The American Dream is Dead. The top 0.1% owns as many assets as the bottom 90%, and it's getting worse." And it goes through the economics. You guys are all familiar with this. Distribution of wealth, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, the inequality has just been soaring. Anyway, you can go over the data, but then it gets to you know, the kind of the heart of it, and the heart of it is that money makes people selfish. The wealthier you are, the less empathetic you become. You know, and we've made the comparison to heroin addiction, addiction to hoarding, addiction to accumulation. You just want more and more and more, and you care less and less and less about those around you who have less. So I'm just going to read here because it's such a great article. So saying that wealth grants, you guys can see the screen share, right? Anyway, the article is
yes.
Great. Saying that wealth grants a lot of power in today's capitalist societies is no great insight. Wealth is what makes you beautiful, what reduces your stress and daily fatigue, what grants you social prestige and education, what gives you time and freedom of choice. Wealth is a big deal, but does wealth affect your behavior? In other words, do emotional responses and rational thinking change when income increases? A team of scientists from UC Berkeley's Institute of Personality and Social Research did a series of fascinating experiments on this topic. The Cookie Monster. They first tried to measure if individuals feel more important than others when put in a position of power. Different groups of 3 people were brought together in a lab. In each group, one person was randomly assigned to be the leader. The groups were then given a collaborative writing task. About half an hour into their work, a plate with 4 cookies was brought, 1 for each person and 1 extra. Who took the 4th extra cookie? You guessed it. In almost all cases, it was the person who'd been made the leader, which of course was a random process. And they were more likely to eat with their mouths open and dropping crumbs. It just seems that when put in a position of power, we tend to be more impulsive and less empathetic. This pattern of increased selfishness has been consistently observed across similar studies. The rude driver. The goal here is to check if there's a difference in driving behavior between the rich and the poor. And the bottom line is that rich people are assholes out on the road much more frequently, pardon me for using the A word, but I actually mean that in the academic sense, than less wealthy. The stoic listener. This experiment's objective is to assess whether level of empathy is affected by how powerful the subject considers himself. Subjects sat down in face-to-face conversation with people who talked about experiences that had caused them suffering. The listeners' responses were measured in 2 ways. First, by self-reported levels of compassion, and second, by electrocardiogram readings to determine the intensity of their emotional response, you know, the kind of the heart math stuff. And the participants were also asked to rank themselves on questions measuring personal strengths. I can get people to listen to what I say, and weaknesses. My wishes do not carry much weight. That allowed the researchers to place them on a sense of power scale. How powerful does that person think they are? The findings were hugely insightful. Participants with a higher sense of power were far more likely to turn a blind eye to their partner's story. More precisely, they experienced less distress, less compassion, and exhibited greater autonomic emotion regulation. The blind observer. This last study further confirms previous conclusions. Participants were shown images of suffering, kids with cancer, for instance. People with a greater sense of power had less activation of a part of the brain that helps us connect with one another. To put it bluntly, they just seem less sensitive to what others are feeling. When a person is suffering, upper-class individuals perceive these signals less well on average. They tend to underestimate the distress of their social environments. And that's by Jennifer Stellar, professor of psychology at UC Berkeley. Ultimately, it turns out wealth is a very good predictor for unethical behavior and reduced empathy. So what's happening here? Do you magically become ungrateful and greedy when you buy a new Porsche? What are the psychological mechanisms at play? Money makes you feel special. The richer you are, the more entitled you feel. And then it goes on and on about that. Anyway, it's just a really great article. But we're getting to to realize the heart of the problem, which is that money, and I know Adam has a lot to say about this, having studied it extensively, but money and the accumulation of surplus wealth beyond, say a season or two, in hunter-gatherer society, that would have been considered phenomenally wealthy if you've got stores to last you for a season or two. We're now just so far off that scale, and money is a drug, as Adam has identified. And so now what we're seeing is this drug is making people be less empathetic towards the rest of the world and deluded to believing that they're going to be okay even if the rest of the world goes to hell. So I really think money and hoarding are indeed the roots of our dysfunction as a species, namely that we cannot see what the destructive path that we're on. And I would say the wealthier you are, the more blind you are to it, because the more addicted you are to money, to hoarding, to income. Anyway, with that, I'm going to go on mute. And Adam, love to hear your thoughts on it as well as everyone else's. Go on mute.
Yeah, I've been itching to say something here, and I'm totally on board with. I found all kinds of information about money and about how it affects people. There's neuropathological studies studies, research that universities have done that show that. There was one study I just read that they counted people crossing crosswalks. Well, they had set up some people crossing crosswalks, and then they counted the different kinds of cars, and then they evaluated that, and they did like several hundred of these, and they found out that the more expensive cars had stopped less for pedestrians than the least expensive cars, and it was a linear progression. It was quite striking. So I'm totally on board with that, and I agree. But I wanted to get back with Dan's point about the elite, and that they might be hiding, or they might have a plan to hide, and then somehow survive. And let's just say that that's true. So if they have this plan, it's likely that it would not be, it's not for sure 100%. I mean, it's pretty scary. I mean, no matter what scenario they put together, it's pretty scary, and we really need their help. Because they are the ones in power that can actually move the media and say the right things and get everybody on board. The problem is, we are, like Dan was saying, we're a civilization full of people who are violent and and thinking and going different directions. So we're all going different directions, and it's like the rich people are like, it's like trying to herd cats, and I think what we need is a plan. We need a real plan that we can follow, and that the elite can follow. And I asked. I went to that meeting, the last Sierra Club meeting, and I asked Guy McPherson if he could put some people together, like Paul Beckwith and a couple other, knowledgeable people, and come up with a list of things that we could do, no matter how hypothetical or difficult they might be, of what we would have to do to get out of this situation. And Paul Beckwith, I didn't ask him, but he's more of like, well, yeah, we have to use geoengineering, and there are things that we can do, and maybe we can buy some time. And I was just talking to Alex not long ago that has been on here, and he's 25, and he's like, yeah, we want to buy some time. We don't want this our lives to be over in the next couple of years. And he's like, I'm 25 and I want to keep on living. Well, the elite, they have a lot of money, but their money can only do so much. They can't do everything with their money. And I mean, the human population is way bigger. I mean, it's just gone out of control. So they may be very well thinking that they don't have any other choice, you know. But if we give them another choice, if we come up with a plan that, you know, that says, hey, we're willing to do this. We just need to, and we think everybody's willing to do this, and we need to get them on board.
Adam?
You see what I'm saying? I'm going to mute out.
Yeah, Adam, I'd like to pick up on what you just said. You know, giving these wealthy people another opening, another view, a perspective. And I also want to talk to what Jamie was talking to insofar as he's saying, you know, we are in the United States, you may want to say, well, you know, let's go outside, let's go to, he said, go to Canada, go to the United Kingdom, Netherlands, etc. And I want to speak to that as well. And it's interesting that he should say that, because I've been comfortable enough to have time, you know, watching a budget carefully, to do a lot of research and reading, as I said some time ago, with respect to my child. You know, one day in June 2015, saying, you know, they watched a documentary that the oceans are going to be dead in 40 years. And I thought, okay, it's overfishing and it's plastic in the plastic in the oceans. And then since then, as I tried to figure out, you know, what we're going to do, you know, she and I and everybody else, I'm just, you know, kind of like swamped by the cascading crises that are occurring. That term I'm borrowing from a journalism professor at the University of Texas named Robert Jensen, used the term cascading crises. And Jamie, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the United States is such a great source of intellectual capacity and power and intellectual thought leaders. And what I'm coming to realize is that we can't change this planet without getting the United States on board. And in fact, again, drawing on these thought leaders who are American, I go back to Ralph Nader. And a few years ago, I think it's now about a few years ago, as I was trying to research this, you know, Ralph Nader said, people, write your president, write your congressman, tell them what you think. And I'm thinking, okay, he has a whole book about his letters to the president. And I thought, okay, well, if Ralph Nader says that's what I should do, that's good enough for me. And so, in fact, I was thinking, all right, who am I going to write? And in fact, the Queen Elizabeth, is the Queen of Canada, but the Governor General is her appointed representative in Canada. Julie Payette, a former NASA astronaut, has spent 25 days in space. She knows what this planet looks like from a perspective that none of us, or few of us, have. And so I just want to say to James that I am pursuing that letter, and everyone should pursue those letters. And when I say I'm pursuing that letter, I want to always try to say we are preparing that letter, because I'm humble to realize, you know, who am I to try to change the world? You know, I'm not a particularly gifted individual in many respects, you know, and I'm not an economist, I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a theologian, and I'm not a Jungian, which is interesting to me. But I do realize, you know, that I am Miles with a Y in my name. And I thought, well, okay, there's something to that. I do like to ask the question why. And although I am vulnerable to squirrels, you know, I'm going to be writing this letter. And as I said, it's a production of me. I would say it's all of you. And it's a part of Mike Simmons and this reconciliation action circle that we're part of here in Calgary. Because I'm just blown away. There's nothing that I'm not being provided with that isn't giving us the capacity to change the world. And you can correct me, but is Margaret Mead an American? I'm probably showing my ignorance here, but she wrote that Margaret Mead said that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. And indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And then she also said what the world needs now are the few that understand that we is more important than me. So with that, I'll mute.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head, Miles. And I just want to say a couple of brief things on that, and then go on mute. But it is all about the we. No one of us is going to be able to do anything significant just on our own. It's all about us coming together, and that's what we're doing right here. We're living the dream right here in the social club at the end of the world. Obviously, we need to expand this to much larger numbers so that we can have groups of people focusing on different aspects of the problem and different solutions, as we've talked about in our introductory videos on collective intelligence, which are on the same YouTube channel. Now, to get people to join and participate in this constructive way, en masse, by the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, we need to get to some substantial numbers in order to figure out solutions, and then figure out how to implement those solutions, how to wake up the rest of humanity, how to transform government, so that we can actually get on the task of refreezing the Arctic as soon as possible, cleaning up the oceans, holistic land management, et cetera, so that we can have a viable life to live. And with that, I'm just going to show some images of what Jamie and I and other colleagues are embarking upon with the campaign this summer. So here's some signs that I've held up. On the left here, I am in downtown San Francisco. Spent a full day on Market Street, the main business district of San Francisco. A lot of foot traffic and car traffic. And here I am at Stanford University for a full day. Spent a full day at each of those places and a full day at UC Berkeley. You see the sign, abrupt climate change. Which side are you on? It's destroying Mother Earth, and people are walking by looking at their cell phones. So we urgently need a cultural transformation. And with that in mind, again, Jamie's in the foreground here on the left, and here I am with my mom. We're in downtown Seattle at CannaCon, the big cannabis business conference, with our anti-drug cartel movement. Criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington. We're taking that show on the road. This is Jamie's sign, though Jamie is way off to the left here, but his size, retired drug enforcement committed to eradicating criminal drug cartels. So very hard hitting. We're taking this on the road through multiple states, basically a national tour. And we're waking people up with what wakes humanity up, which is an enemy tribe coming to kill us and steal our women. And that's criminal drug cartels. So we've got this enemy tribe. But with that, we're waking people up. When we wake people up and they say, okay, fine, you've woken us up. Now what do you want us to do? We're in the process of building a new political party. This was born just in the last 24 or 48 hours, literally. But building a new political party that people can join. And then you can imagine meetup groups in cities all around the world for the Me Party. Me stands for Mother Earth. It also stands for me, the individual. So it's this synthesis of the individual and Mother Earth and everything in between. That we have to look at this holistically. So I'm just kind of giving my prescription for if we're going to have any hope of solution, it needs to be we need to come together. We need to come together en masse and leverage our collective intelligence. By the way, here's a book I really want to recommend to everyone. The book is called Big Mind: How Collective Intelligence Can Change Our World. And this just came out in the last few months. And so, as you know, with Radish, we've been building a platform for collective intelligence. And I just discovered in the last month or so this book, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's basically kind of the academic perspective supporting what we're doing platform-wise in terms of building the platform for collective intelligence. But this could not be more urgent. Lots of great ideas are thrown around on this program and on other venues. But in order to actually solve our problems, we need a vastly higher form of intelligence to take these great ideas to fruition. Because until we take them to fruition, they're just ideas. You know, like, for example, Dan, you've got this great idea that if young people could be told that it's a good idea to postpone having children, to what? Why? And then that'll wake. That's a great idea. How the hell do we get it done? Right? We keep having more and more great ideas. Oh, let's get rid of money. If we only get rid of money, then we'll have all these benefits. Great, Sherlock. How the hell do we get rid of money? You know, how? We need a massively higher form of intelligence in order to figure out the how. Get over it. We can't do it with our current modality of living, our current mode of production of our current global economy, which is an economy of hoarding and externalization. And it produces what we've got, nothing else, right? But disaster and growing disaster. So we need a massively higher form of intelligence. To do that, we need people to join a platform, not necessarily Radish, but a platform for holistic collective intelligence that seeks to make the world whole again and to holistically address our problems. For that, we need to bring people together. For that, we need to wake people up. For that, we need Darth Vader and the drug cartels and a new political party and a whole new vision for all this. But we need to blast into their minds. And we're going to do that with the national campaign to eradicate the criminal drug cartels. But once we've blasted into their minds, then what? We need to direct them someplace where we can come together and actually form this collective intelligence that's just beckoning to be formed. With that, we will have the intelligence we need to come up with all the solutions and all the implementations across the board. Short of that, I just don't see how we're going to do it. If anyone has any better ideas as to how we can do it without collective intelligence, I'd be very interested to hear that. If not, let's get on the track and make collective intelligence a reality. With that, I'm going to unmute.
Yeah, Jamin, I'm going to just jump in here. I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes, so let me say a couple of things. Hoarding and uncontrolled acquisition is actually it's an emotional problem. It's something which has to be managed like any other emotion. But I want to go back to the problem of contempt, and I'm going to hook it. When I used to teach anger management, I would bring up 5 stimuli that cause people to become angry. Frustration, physical discomfort, and disrespect. Everybody wants to be treated with respect. Losses, and then unfairness. And unfairness is a huge issue. I believe we're hardwired to expect fairness. And that means, if I have 4 pieces of food, I divide and there's 4 of us, each one of us gets a piece of food. And the only way that I can prevent you from thinking, if I take 2 or 3 pieces of food, I must convince you that that is fair. Otherwise, you're going to get angry at me and you won't let me get away with it. So what we have going on a societal level, when we talk about all this inequality and essentially unfairness, is the elites constantly have to come up with ideologies, with ideas that justify the unfairness. And that usually is and as they do that, they've got to convince people you're only getting what you deserve. As a matter of fact, you're lucky to even be getting that. You ought to be thankful of what you're getting. So they have to constantly do that. And part of that is coming through a feeling of contempt for other people. Most wealthy elites, and forgive me if you're one of them, and you happen to be listening, and this doesn't characterize you, but they tend to be socialized and raised as children with an idea that those who are lacking in education or wealth or whatever it is are not worthy of anything more than what they really have. You know, they're just kind of, you know, the scum of the earth, etc. And this is a huge problem. And so if you look at it from the point of view of collective intelligence, so if you take it as a you know, some sort of a premise that people who want to be unfair in terms of what they're acquiring must convince other people that they are undeserving, and in a sense have contempt for them, going, you know, to the predator prey, then that would be something that has to be solved. And it's not really that hard to solve theoretically, because everybody knows that this is how, you know, this is how people are and how the mind operates. At this point in time, we can't allow it to continue to have more and more of the resources and what little is left going to these very kind of greedy, selfish elites who feel they deserve everything they get, and the others are unworthy. And if you take that to a logical conclusion, then you could pretty much say, you know, you get to the level of people talking about, you know, the useless eaters, the people who really don't contribute anything, they're actually bringing things down. So I just want to, I'm going to have to leave. I just wanted to throw that in there. And I do think that a lot of the problems, if they are reduced to kinds of things that people know instinctively and don't really think are right, we would be able to generate some real action. And I know from my own experience, when I go there with somebody, yeah, they usually can pretty much understand the issue of fairness and of course the issue of respect. You know, and people want to be treated in a respectful manner, whether they have a lot or not. And in our culture, where we throw around words like, you know, loser all the time, you know, it just permeates everything. This is a real problem. So with that, I got to get going. I want to again say I'm so thankful to be among this group and have the opportunity to talk and have these meaningful conversations. It's great. And, you know, I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.
Great to see you, Dan. Thanks a lot. Wow. We're really getting to the heart of some really powerful stuff. But, you know, I think that as people, I mean, as we launch our political movement, and let's, you know, really, one of the things I like about the political movement is embedded within it is the possibility for a transformational solution. In other words, let's say that, you know, one of us is elected president in 2020, right, from this new political party that we're forming, this new political movement. We say, listen, vote for us in 2020, and we will immediately commit the resources to refreeze the Arctic, and we'll launch a bunch of emergency measures. And the thing is, between now and election day in 2020, you're going to see so many natural disasters, you know, from abrupt climate change, that I think people will have the appetite to vote in, you know, a candidate with, you know, an actual plan per atom for how we can actually turn this whole thing around. So basically, the strategy I'm proposing is we promote the movement through this tour that we're doing this summer and through the formation of meetup groups all around the world. Through that, we seed the collective intelligence. And then as a collective intelligence, a massively higher form of intelligence than what we've got now, we figure out our next steps from there using collective intelligence, rather than just stumbling along as we have been, as a loose collection of individuals, you know, hanging out once a week. Miles, you're unmuted, and from time to time we hear a lot of noise coming from you inadvertently, I'm sure. Anyway, okay, thanks for muting. And I'll go on mute myself.
Hey, Jamin, I'd like to respond. I think that we are, your idea about forming a new political party and stuff is good, and I think it's definitely working in the right direction. But I'm not sure that we have time, and I think that in order to get things done quickly, and we need to convince the people that can get it done quickly. And I think that the elite, whoever they are, have this power. So the question is, why aren't they using it? And another question is, how can we get them to use it the way we want them to use it? And so if they have a plan, they must have some kind of a plan. If they have some kind of a plan to escape, well, and we tell them that we have a plan. We have another plan. They don't have to do this. There's another way out, and offer that to them. And if we can get just a couple of them on board, I think that it won't be long before we hit critical mass. And that's basically all I want to say. I'm going to go mute. Thanks.
Guys, I'm going to bow out now. I actually want to go to City Hall and sit in on this Winter Olympic bid committee and find out what the heck they're talking about there, and spending $4.8 billion for the 2026 Olympics, and exactly how that might connect to the elite, because there's really not much more of an elite show than the Olympics and some of these other events. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye, and great talking to you, and I'll catch the replay.
Great. Thank you, Miles. Have a good meeting. We'll see you soon.
I was going to jump in and kind of little dovetail on Adam's point. I'm not 100% certain, and it's just a feeling that the elite class is overly concerned with this problem because I think that the highest level of achievers and wealthiest people, money grabbers, the most successful hoarders of our tribe have seen us as chattel, if you will, and have been hurting us for a long, long time. H-E-R-D, hurting. So I'm not completely convinced that getting an audience with the elites would necessarily stimulate them to act. I'm not certain that people like Trump don't believe in global warming. It just doesn't fit with his agenda. I feel that there's a portion of me, and I'm not committed to this, but I sense that it could be that we are seen as expendable. And if, let's say, climate change caused tremendous destruction over the next 30 years to the point where there are 2 billion people left from the 7, and the elites could ride that out. So I'm just saying it, the devil's advocate, having seen how big government operates to serve the people that run big government, having been a soldier in that organization. It's an upwardly mobile. My reports, I go out into the field and do what I do for the citizens, but the accolades go up the chain, and it's the attorney generals and the presidents that claim victory. So the system is definitely focused not on the ant that builds the hive. It is focused on the queen and their battles to run the hive, which is exactly opposite of how hives actually work. So that's a lot of wind. So I'm just not certain, which is why I threw out there, I'm not discounting, and I know Miles brought it up, not discounting trying to contact and use a channel towards the United States government, which Jamin is establishing, and he hit a home run with it, with thinking about this Mother Earth Party. But there's no reason, because of the time schedule, not to additionally send out requests for attention, with simple requests: join this organization, join Radish, look into Emmy, put on some video conferences instead of trying to have a conference in Las Vegas that's structurally difficult. Things can be done online in the instant at this time in our life, and we need to capitalize that. And I think that reaching out to the intellectual people that are fully aware of this problem and have been for some, in some cases, 30 years, and whether they're wherever they're at. I mean, I think it's a mistake to keep this conversation inside the boundaries of one country, especially the country that's causing the most damage, and ignoring it the most actively. So my thought is, reach out, send fingers out to organizations that are on top of this, that are aware of it, whoever they're funded by, and whatever their agenda is. It really doesn't matter for our purpose, because our agenda is very simple. Let's help Mother Earth help herself and fix this. And if that makes elitists wealthy, great. And if that makes people get Pulitzer Prizes, that's fine too. If they're successful, they deserve it. So that's my thought. I think we need a multiple prong approach. We need to come up with a platform that's going to cover all the bases, put as many eggs as many baskets as possible, and push them all forward to try to get the most amount of people interested, without alienating any single group, because there's going to be probably a large percentage, certainly in America where I live, a large percentage of people that are just like Jamin said. We're out screaming and yelling, talking about drug cartels, and maybe 1 out of 100 people stop to talk to us. And we had a really good discussion, really good arguments, and we had a great audience at the University of Washington to have a huge debate with their debate club. The biggest debate club audience and participation in the history of the University of Washington happened, that Jamin set up when we were out in Seattle. So there's people that are engaged, but they're in pockets. So we have to find the pockets of engagement, and we have to deliver our message there. I feel it's a waste of time to try to, the people that are saying, I'm just worried about my minivan and it's too big of a problem for me. I get those people. I understand they're not wired to get it. So we need to, again, find the pockets of the audience and try to get the message in there. And those are where our gardens need to be watered, to get those people involved in this organization, as well as getting their own organizations connected. In a lot of cases, many of these academic organizations are essentially think tanks, but they're not activators. And we are an activator, not a think tank. We're trying to activate solutions, and they're coming up with solutions and writing a paper, and then it gets filed. And we need to get those things together. And I'm going to mute.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little screen share here and just kind of show as a point of comparison, kind of the two different strategies that have been proposed for how to actually achieve the transformations that we need to achieve if we're going to survive. So let me do the screen share real quick. Okay, so Adam, what you proposed at the top, I've just kind of sketched up here in this way. I'll just highlight some things. So you basically said, your strategy is, if among the elite, we could essentially orchestrate the elite by offering them a plan. How does that orchestrate them? Well, if they buy into the plan, then they'll start contributing to the plan, participating in the plan. So the key is to offer them a plan, and then you're essentially orchestrating the elite at that point and the resources they have access to, their own and many others. That's a form of power. I'm just trying to paraphrase what you were saying, Adam. Okay, and then now, if you look down below the blue line, what I'm proposing is that we use collective intelligence to orchestrate everything. With collective intelligence, we can actually come up with a plan that would be so powerful that, yes, it would entice the elite to sign on to it. But other parts of the everything are waking up the rest of humanity building better and better platforms for collective intelligence. You take the combination of those two, right? And we will then be able to come up with way better plans, right? With more people waking up the rest of humanity, and better platforms for collective intelligence, leverage various layers of artificial intelligence as well as all of the humanity who are participating. We will be able to come up with a kick-ass plan without a massively higher form such as what I'm proposing here. I don't know how we're going to come up with a plan that's going to convince, let alone the elite, convince anyone that, we've got a viable plan to get us out of this mess, because the mess is so darn big. How are you going to get out of a mess that's so darn big? My fundamental thesis is the only way we're going to get out of this mess is through collective intelligence. That's the ultimate form of power, way more powerful than the elite or anything that they could do. Right? The elite is, and I think you were making this point, Adam, that they're all going off in a zillion different directions. Each one's trying to frack the hell out of their own little slice of Mother Earth. And, so they're not coordinated at all. Some of them are making so much money building the rope that's hanging the rest of us, including the rest of the elite. That's just a great emblematic example of how discoordinated they are. So I really think collective intelligence is the ultimate source of power for both coming up with a plan that'll convince not only the elite, but everyone, and waking up the rest of humanity, and building better and better platforms for collective intelligence to get the most out of the people that are on board. Now, to achieve all this, we need to get people on board. I mentioned a political party, a movement, and all that. To those who say we don't have time, well, what else are we going to do with the time that we have? Then assemble people together, plug them into a collective intelligence, and use that as the fountainhead that generates everything else that we need. The plan, how to wake up the rest of humanity, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying? I mean, am I missing something fundamental, or do y'all agree with me? Please let me know.
Well, I hate to harp on the same point, but if you look at money as a poison, then you see all the crazy things that we've done, and you realize that that we're acting like we're under the influence of a poison, and rich people act like that. No animal in nature fouls its own nest unless it's either under a poison or it's sick, which generates its own kind of poison. So, I mean, if the person with rabies gets rabies and they go insane, well, everybody knows that they've gone insane, and it makes logical sense, and they don't relate that insanity to the real person. So if money is a poison, and mankind has been poisoned, and ever since we left hunters and gatherers and became civilized and started using money, ever since then, we've gone haywire, and we've acted as though we are under the influence of a poison. And I think that the elite may be more able to understand this concept than even the general public, because even though they're closer to money, money's kind of like radiation. The closer you get to it, the sicker you become. But that's because they have power, and so I think that the elite are. It's critical that we get them on board with us and show them. And in order to get them on board, we need to have a plan, because they're not going to listen to us without a plan. That's all.
Well, I'm going to jump in quickly. Adam really just sent a shiver down my spine, because really the poison that he's in his money, and others have, he's gotten a lot of his information from research. This goes far back from, like you said, hunter-gatherer. the very instant currency, in our current case, that's money. But the instant we left the communal setting and chose currency, which was our cattle, our chattel, access to the water on our reservation, selling our daughters, the Indians, and I'm not selecting anybody at all, but I'm just saying different cultures did it different ways, selling their females. Currency became an addiction, and the addiction is now the cause. And to a pretty serious degree, and I'm not gauging anything, I'm just floating along with the rest of you. Adam's exactly right. And I'm not so sure the elite aren't already aware of that, quite honestly. I mean, when I was a child in the 70s, the United States was deriding the Chinese policy of one child per family. But if you take a look going back to that policy, which was essentially to keep the elites in the communist hierarchy in place, they did so, the elites in the communist China and that policy, because they recognized the limits of that huge country's assets. And limiting one child per family would ensure a longevity of assets. And we've slowly evolved, even China and the Asian nations, which are among the oldest, to stop the policies that actually would have prevented that where we're at. Now, they didn't do it for altruistic means, but the outcome would have been a better outcome had we followed that model than we followed this addiction to currency / money. So Adam's 100% right on that. It can't be ignored that we have to engage the elites. And I want to engage, I think we need to do a global position on this and engage multiple prongs on the platform that we're going to put together, because nothing should be overlooked. And if the elites turn their back on us, so be it. And if the people outside this country turn their back on us, so be it. It's very possible, quite frankly, that we can't solve this because it's excessively convoluted and it will be unsolvable and the chips will fall where they may. But it is foolhardy, I think, to not include everybody. And I do see Adam's strong argument here for the elites, because if you don't get your Sheldon Adelsteins on board and the various people that are running things, at least to some degree, because maybe they're so rich they don't care anymore, but they've got great grandchildren that they love. So that's a spear we've got to deliver to them, saying, okay, you've made $1 trillion, but what are you going to do for your great grandkids? Because what Adam nailed is none of these problems were brought on by poor people. None of these problems have been brought on by poor people or people of limited means. So that in itself is what they call prima facie evidence. It is clearly where the problem lies. So with that, I'll mute.
I would also like to add that collective intelligence would be an extremely important part, because and artificial intelligence, because these are tools that we've never had before. We've never had the internet before, and so we can use these things. And there's another tool that we have, and that is that we don't think about, and that is the young people. See, for young people like Mike there, I mean, for us, it's not about us. It's about the young people, and they may be a whole lot more receptive to changing, to actually developing a system where we end use of money. And they would rather, I would venture to say that they would rather live than even, that they would even be open to being more open-minded religiously. I mean, things that really get in the way of where we're going. The young people, they want to live, so they're more willing to do whatever has to be done, but they just need a plan. They need a direction and some place to go. And right now, there is no direction. That I have been working on a plan, and I'm about ready to get it out there. So I hope that will go someplace.
So, gentlemen, what I would like to propose is a holistic solution that gets us to a place where we have a plan, right? And Adam, I just want to acknowledge that you have been working on what I would call a very high level. It's one aspect of the plan, and that is getting rid of money, right? But I would also venture that until we have a clear pathway for actually achieving that it's not a complete plan, right? Just showing people, hey, if we got rid of money, look at how wonderful the world would be, right? And that's irrefutable. If we got rid of money and essentially, you know, operated in a holistic way where we took care of everyone's basic human needs and whatnot, it would be a wonderful world. That's irrefutable. But how do you get from here to there? That's the big question. And I actually think that you hit on part of the answer. But when you mentioned young people, right? Because they're clearly part of the answer. What I would like to propose for all of your consideration is a holistic whole answer, not just a couple parts of the answer. Hey, here's the utopian destination, and young people can help us get us there, but the whole of it. I want to fill out the whole of it, because until we have a whole car, we're not going to go very far down the freeway, right? And the idea of a car isn't going to get us there either. We actually need a vehicle. So so what I'm proposing is the following. We make collective intelligence our vehicle. That's our car. We build it out by bringing people in, and rather than say, oh, we're going to get all the rest of humanity. No, we're going to get little specks, as Jamie was saying. We're going to get little pockets of humanity. And we're going to get them on board by going on the road, doing events like we're doing at the Sierra Club next week in California, and doing all kinds of public activity that will wake up pockets of young people, right? Including folks like Alex, who is a programmer, who can join the team and help us build a better platform. For what? For collective intelligence, right? Now, this is a whole car. It's got a lot of moving parts. Platform for collective intelligence, you know, ways of waking up humanity, ways of waking up young people. But you see where this leads us to is precisely, drum roll, this plan that you keep talking about. Adam, yes, we need a plan. I'm not refuting that at all. It's right at the top and in the center. We need a plan. We need a plan. What I'm suggesting is a pathway to actually getting the plan, making it better and better and better with successively better platforms for collective intelligence. Look, the basic math here is really simple, okay? You bring together people, right? And that's kind of like your raw material of intelligence. And you also, you know, throw in multiple layers of artificial intelligence, right? I'll show the layers like this, right? If you put all that together, if you combine the two via a platform that integrates the two, right? Then those are like your inputs. Think of the platform as kind of like this big, you know, black box. If those are your inputs to the black box, the output is intelligence, a massively higher form of intelligence. What kind of intelligence? Collective intelligence, abbreviated CI, okay? If we have that, we can then generate everything else we need, including the plan, right? Now, I want to, if I'm not putting you on the spot, Adam, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on what I'm saying, that we need a whole plan, not just parts of a plan. Like here's the utopian destination. That's not a plan. That's a part of a plan. It's the destination part. Very important part. But we need a whole plan. To get a whole plan, we need big mind. We need smarter brains than what we've got. I know it's a very humbling thing to suggest that you and I and Jamie and Mike might not have the combined intelligence to figure out what we need to do, but I think we need to swallow that big horse pill. That those of us at the table here are simply not smart enough to orchestrate the changing course of this giant spaceship called planet Earth.
You're right.
We need to get over that fact and really set our sights on achieving and realizing collective intelligence before it's too late. I'm going on mute, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on your answer to that specifically. I mean, do you agree or disagree? Is this collective intelligence just a big waste of time, and we just need to listen to Adam and read his 20-page thesis, and then boom, oh, wow, that's it. The oceans will part. The elite will get a couple of elites to read it, and they'll tell the rest of the elites, and everything will be done. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, disparage what you're doing. To the contrary, I acknowledge it as a crucial part, but we need the whole. We need the whole solution, the whole plan, not just parts of the plan. And to get there, collective intelligence is what I propose to get there. Anyway, that's what I'd like to ask your feedback on.
Well, I'm working on this plan, as you know, and it does involve how we get there, what we do, and part of that is the elite, you know, that we need their help. And I don't pretend to know all the answers or how to do things, you know. So the whole plan relies heavily on collective intelligence. I mean, and artificial intelligence. Like I said, these are tools that we have today. We have the internet today. We can use these tools. It may be, I mean, mankind, and the other thing is to realize that that money is a poison. If we, I mean, I can pretty much almost prove that money is a poison. So if we're acting under a poison, then that takes on a whole. Once we start to realize that, and that's what I'm trying to do the most, is get people to understand that it's a poison. And once we look at it like that, then we could start imagining the future without money. Then what I'm saying is that all the vision for the road to life comes into focus. Once you eliminate money, it comes into focus. But right now we live under the poison of money, and we can't think clearly. So you can have all these collective intelligence and everything, but if you still have money, then our thoughts are going to be twisted, and because money ultimately seeks to make more money. That's the effect of the poison. So I think that, you know, part of my plan, is about how to make it come into place. And I'll just do a screen share here here we go. And I wrote, this is part of what I wrote. How do we begin the road to life? And
you don't see the screen share, Adam. We don't see the screen share. You might want to
you don't see it? Okay.
Right, we don't see it.
Oh, share. Okay, I hit share. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so now I'll go to screen share. Okay, so I got, like, I was just working on this last night, and I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read it all, but basically I've come up with 6 things that we can do to implement a plan. And first is that I'm going to put this Road to Life plan, I call it. I'm going to post it on YouTube, and so people can listen to it, and it'll just be listening, and I'll just be reading my manuscript, so people can listen to it while they're driving in their car or whatever they're doing. And then, and so it'll get out there. The second, or and so when somebody hears the plan, then the seed will be planted, and then we'll have the. Anyway, there's steps. We ask the elite for help. We use collective intelligence, we use artificial intelligence, and we solicit help from the young people. I mean, these are just this is where I am on the plan. So I'll take screen share off. I'll try to take it off here. Am I off screen share now? Oh, okay.
No, you're still on screen share. You're still on.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Okay. Now you're back.
Thanks.
Let me jump in here with just a thought. I on the screen share, I looked at your table of contents as you were going down and you were describing it. And before I saw your screen share, and of course I don't know anything about your plan other than what you've hinted at, and I see your passion. What I'm seeing here, guys, is exactly why we're here. If I'm an outsider, I'm not creating CI. I'm not creating anything. I'm just joining in. Call me like a citizen scientist. I'm seeing you guys are already coming together. It seems like you have divergent ideas. But while I'm taking these courses every Tuesday and I'm keeping up with the ones I haven't attended, these things are exactly what needs to happen with groupthink, ultimately radical intelligent, RCI. These are mutually needed together. Jamin has created radical collective intelligence with the intent purpose of gleaning the brightest minds and the youngest minds and the oldest minds and getting the old people to trudge into the fire. That's going to be the platform for this. I see, and I'm not picking sides. I'm just saying what I see is Adams. What I just saw, I've heard him talk about it for a few weeks, a couple of months, and I just got a glint of it. And one of my few skill sets is I can really grab information quickly. And what I see, Adams' plan is in my opinion, Adam, don't take this the wrong way. It isn't a plan. It's the solution. Getting radical collective intelligence up and running to stop the globe from crashing gives us the space to implement Adam's solution. That's just how I see the flow. And I felt some friction, and intelligence breeds friction. So we all understand that. There's been friction here for us trying to jockey for position, which is because we're human. But what I'm seeing is these things are links in a critical chain. And if we can get RCI to stop the madness for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 4 years, and enough people chime in to say, hey, I'm interested in that, the arrows from radical collective intelligence are going to point to the plan Adam has just birthed. That's the beginning of this plan. And he had 6 topics on the left over here, 6 topics. And each one of them you could write 30 or 40,000 books on. He's nailed it. He's got an ability to nail the issue and to funnel it down to the simple path. And that, I know you're calling it the plan, but I'm going to refer to it as a solution. We need to get to the point where we've stopped the earth from dying so we can then say, hey, here's the plan. Here's the plan. So there's a lot in there, and I don't want to see Adam's plan co-opted by an elite or whatever. So there's so much to it. But that was my gut after watching Jamin and knowing his approach and seeing RCI up close and personal and being a believer for a long time because I get it. And then listening to Adam, but then seeing that, and I'm a very visual guy, got dyslexia, so I struggle with concepts unless I can see them. As soon as I saw that table of contents and then the couple of paragraphs he pointed out, it's much more than a plan. It is the path forward. We have to stop the insanity to get to the path forward. I'm muting.
Right. And to stop the insanity, we need collective intelligence. And to refine Adam's plan, we need collective intelligence. And to fill in whatever gaps and missing pieces there are in the plan, we need collective intelligence. So my thesis is that collective intelligence is the key, plain and simple.
I think we need to get together on this at Jamin.
Well, we are getting together in these hangouts, and as we set about our national tour with a long stop in Austin, Texas, of all places. Welcome, Alex. We're, in fact, Jamie and I have been talking about this the last couple of days. We're gearing up for a serious campaign to wake the world up to join the conversation, so they can add, as we say in Mexico, their granito de arena, their little grain of sand to the conversation, their little thread to the tapestry. Or if they've got a bundle of threads, bring your bundle, right? But everyone, this way, everyone can contribute to the building of the complete holistic plan that we need to build to get us from here to wherever we're going to get to go, however constrained by abrupt climate change, the sixth mass extinction, etc. But however we're going to get from here to wherever we're going to go, we're going to get there a lot better and faster and more efficiently, and we're going to get to a much better destination to the extent to which we apply the power of collective intelligence. And after that little sermon, I'm going to go on mute.
Let me just chime in quickly, and I'm going to stop taking up so much time, but I would propose, based on what I have felt happen here in this room, this global living room, I think it would be helpful and beneficial for this movement, and for Jamin's movement, and for Adam's movement, Jamin and Adam should get some private time together on a phone call or two-man FaceTime to get into each other's individual. You could Adam can be brought up to speed, as I have, on the structure of RCI, because this is a guy that could benefit from getting his dialogue out there, even maybe immediately, like he's planning. And it's not necessarily link it strictly to what we're doing. He's thinking about some independent ideas, and that's a good idea, because he's got a great solution that will bring people in, which we will then bring the people in I've been talking about that we need to get a hold of and get their minds on agreeing with his solution and joining our RCI, because these are the people we're looking for. And the more hooks in the water, the better chance you're going to catch the big fish. And I think that you two, separate from this, should find time to have a coffee clutch from your various cities and go over it. Because just the glimpse I saw, it's a perfect dovetail. And you guys are going after we're all going after the exact same group of people. And what we want to not do here is divide and conquer. We want to join and unite. Join and unite. And I bring what I bring, which is mending fences and simple strategy. He spent so much money on this project and many millions more to go. Adam's digging in deeply. There's a lot of stuff he could be doing today, riding his motorcycle, whatever. He's spending hours up all night, gleaning through thousands. His library card's probably worn out. The guy's worn his library card out. I mean, he's got every book. He's read it 3 times, and he's actually, Adam is an example of artificial intelligence. He's taken as much information as he can get from the library and condensed it down to this solution. And that's a massive amount of work. And if we can get his people interested in what he's doing and RCI and get those people together, that's our audience. I'm going on mute.
No, really good stuff. I'd like to take it one step further and invite Adam to join us on our nationwide tour this summer with a long stop in Austin, Texas. That way, as we're out there in public talking with the world, the community's coming up, and we're talking solutions, right? They can say, well, what do you mean by a solution? Adam, you want to give them an example of a solution? Right? There you go. but I think it's time for all of us who can to hit the road, join the caravan. And fortunately for Alex, of all of us on the call, Alex is the one who won't have to hit the road because the caravan's coming to Austin, Texas. But for the rest of us, I say join the caravan. Let's all hit the road. And we need to talk to our people, starting with the American people, and starting with a movement that gets everybody's attention, criminal drug cartels, and at the same time, and that says, look, we're gonna look. The wall is a start. Let's finish the job. Now let's finish the job. And what does that mean? Repealing prohibition. So you see, it's automatically a very tense, charged situation. You're talking the wall, and you're talking federal prohibition of all drugs, and the repealing of prohibition. Extremely controversial topics, right? And then and then we point to, like the poster I shared a bit ago. I'll just flash it again on the screen. We marry those extremely hot topics with the super hot topic of abrupt climate change. Here I am at Stanford for a whole day with abrupt climate change destroying Mother Earth. Which side are you on? Right? We marry those two together, right? And with that marriage, it's absolutely explosive. We talk about eradicating all forms of organized crime, including organized crimes against Mother Earth. That means blowing up the Death Star. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, what's the plan? Again, Adam has a plan, a holistic plan for transforming life on Earth, transforming our very mode of production. So anyway, this is what I'm proposing, that we hit the road, we converge in Austin, Texas, spend a good chunk of June there, most of June in Austin, Texas, and thereabouts. And then, or maybe by mid to late June, we're heading off to cover some other spots and end up in New York or Washington, D.C. or something like that. But we get the world's attention by whatever means, and that's how we recruit heavily to collective intelligence, because the smartest folks who are out there listening are going to say, wow, this is making a lot of sense. I'm joining in. I'm going to join the conversation. It doesn't cost them a penny, but it does take some time. So you jump in, just like all of us have. Going on mute.
Well, Jamin, you have your pathway, and I have mine, and that's all cool. And like Jamie says, we're working together, I'm taking a little different approach. I want to open up. I want to start a show like this one on YouTube, a live show, and I'm not very good at that. I'm not very knowledgeable on the computer, so I could use your help or some help, direction there. And one of the things I want to do on my show would be, I want to talk to the elite, and I want to have people come on the show, and I was thinking about it, and at the end of the show, I want to give them some homework. And so when they come back to the show, I want them to give me one sentence or a haiku poem that they would say if they had the opportunity to talk to the elite. What would they say? And just like one simple little sentence. So eventually the elite will become aware, and then and they'll maybe listen to the program, and it'll become known as a place where people can talk to the elite. And maybe, who knows, maybe they'll come back and respond. But we don't have any other place to talk to them. And that's what really brought me into with the collective intelligence and what you're putting out. it just it makes us think about how we can overcome all this. I'm going to go on mute. Said enough.
I'm going to just say one quick thing, and that is what Adam has achieved and has done and has created, and now he wants to bring it to the world, is exactly what Jamin did to create. He left Microsoft and for a bigger mission, and he went on to create a platform that's designed to pull in metadata of ideas, and Adam is doing it one person at a time. And again, that is why I think it would be really valuable for all of us on Earth and for Jamin and Adam to spend some time together. Adam can pick Jamin's ridiculous knowledge of internet savvy behavior, and he can help you get your show going, because I think your show and discussing what you've created would be something that our road trip could link to and say, hey, this is what we're saying. This is Radical Collective Intelligence, and we'd like to point you to Adam, whatever your last name is. Don't say it on the internet now. Adam Solutions, the Adam Solution, and you can link him here. And here's a copy of his dissertation, or not maybe yet. It's not may not be ready for prime time, but we're moving beginning of this summer, and I think I would like to see in some capacity Jamin and Adam get together to find a way to connect these not different concepts. They're just different parts of the apple that we have to figure out. And when we get their attention, we need to deliver them to the Adam location. And I'd like to see people that are watching his show be cross-directed in this direction, because no one's here is drawing a profit. So there's no competition to get any more eyeballs like there is for the other YouTube people. This is a competition to get hearts and minds. We don't want their eyeballs and to get a percentage of YouTube revenue. We want to get solutions. So what we're looking for is a solution, a basket full of solutions. And as we've seen in this conversation, people are going to come at it from different locations. And because of that, that's a strength. Going on mute. I'm going to have to leave in a second here.
No, really good stuff, Jamie. Yeah. No, why don't you continue on with what you were saying before you have to jump off, Jamie? I think you're really on a roll here.
Can you hear me? Am I off? You can hear me? Okay. Well, all I'm saying, and it's really for an outsider. Let's pretend I don't know anybody here, okay? Which essentially I don't. But you've let me share into your minds and your hearts, and we've talked about, obviously, the most critical problem facing our universe, which exists of one planet. So the whole universe is nearing the cliff. And I see different people coming, and some people come here to talk. Some people ramble like me. Some people grumble. And that's all part of the different people in a tribe. Some people are good at gathering wood. Some people are good at starting fires. Some people can track a fox and kill it. Some people can skin the cow and make a teepee. It's the differences that give us our strength here. And I'm seeing a divide between two very, very, very swift and bright minds between Adam and Jamin. And what I don't want to see is you guys pull apart to your own dominions when it's the exact same dominion. It's just different parts of it, because this is how we link the different ideas, whether it be Adam literally going to the library for the last 18 years and taking out 7 books a day and reading on the toilet and in his backyard, and when he gets done with a lawnmower, and not going to dinner with his wife because he has to finish a chapter, or Jamin doing it from the completely other side of hiring people to create a website and to pay for the platform, and it's $1 million out of his retirement. He worked a lot of time to make a lot of money, and he's pouring it into this solution-based platform. You guys have done the exact same work. One's doing it with a laser beam, one's doing it with a hammer, but it's the same work. So that's why I need you guys to get your hammer and chisels together and come up with a way how we can symbiotically take both missions, which are the same mission. And, if we're getting eyeballs in Austin and we get a groundswell, great. And if Adam's getting eyeballs on his site and he's getting the eyeballs, great. They're all the same eyeballs. We're fishing for the same fish. So we've got to share the fish. That's all I'm saying.
Outstanding. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, what I wanted to add is what I like about radical or collective intelligence is it gives us a chance to figure out where we. It's hard to say, but it gives us a chance to figure things out. It's a place where, when I first saw it, I saw it as a place where everybody could go, and artificial intelligence would be used to assimilate all this information. And then I kind of wrote a little anecdote, and so say that there's some toothless old bum someplace, and he happens to know the secret to levitation. So he doesn't, everybody thinks that he's crazy and won't listen to him. Nobody will give him the time of day. But he gets on the internet and he goes to a place where he can give this information. So the computer, even though all humans won't listen to him, the computer will listen. So then the artificial intelligence takes that information and compares it to all the other information, and puts out and spits out a product that says, "Hey, now we know how to do levitation." And where did it come from? Well, it came from this. Well, it's not important where it came from. The important thing is that we have the knowledge now. So I think that your collective intelligence is exactly what we need. And it's a tool that we've never had before, which, scientists are telling us that we've crossed tipping points. We've gone over the edge of the cliff, and we need to use geoengineering to get back. And so these are really important decisions we're going to have to make. And those decisions are going to have to be evaluated. And I think that if you put radical collective intelligence with artificial intelligence and modeling, I think these are the best ways to come up with the right solutions. And what really brought me into this whole thing to begin with was when I figured that if artificial intelligence analyzed all the solutions and then compared money and what we know about money and what it's done, that the prime thing to do is to realize that money is a poison, a literal poison to man. Once you realize that it's a poison, you can think clearly, because I have an analogy that I start my book out with called, and it's the analogy of the Star Trek Enterprise, or Starship Enterprise. So the Starship Enterprise got a whole bunch of people on it, and one day all of a sudden they start acting weird and they start selling parts of the ship, and then pretty soon everybody's like selling parts of the ship for money. And the whole thing, the whole society on the ship changes. Everything changes. Even the captain is affected by the poison. And just before the ship's about to be totally destroyed, some technician goes down below and sees that, and does some tests and says, "Hey, we've all been eating a poison. That's why we're going crazy."
Spot.
And so then the captain says, "Well, let's get rid of the poison." And shortly after, the people's minds clear, and then they say, "Oh, look what we've done!" And now we can implement the plan for this emergency procedure. We can implement that plan, and we can fix stuff, and we have clear minds to do that, so we can get back on the road again, the road to life again. I'll mute.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Well, that would have been Spock that would have said, "Hey guys," and you just explained the exact beautiful relationship between what Jamin's done and what you've done. That is exactly it. Someone's got to get them to stop taking the ship apart, and then the plan gets executed. You actually are the escape pod, Adam. That's what you've created. And I don't know anything about your plan, but I see that that's the work you've done. And so again, I'm going to be, I have to get off like in 1 minute. I'm going to close by saying this was an amazing intellectual discussion. And I think that the two of you need to take a nap and then tomorrow morning or sometime get together and figure out what structure Jamin has built and what structure Adam has built and how we can go forward together here and separately in Adam's show and the Jamin tour, because it is an error to not bring these forces together. We're cutting off our nose. This is exactly why we're here. This is why we're here. There are so many other Adams and Jamins and Alexes, and they're not here. And this is why we're here. So we have to get over the prideful, this is my way, this is my way. And I'm not saying anyone's doing that, but what we have to do is say, here's the pie I've baked. Here's the pie I've baked. Let's have a bake sale. That's what I want to see you guys do. So I'm going to mute, and then I'm going to wave off in a second.
Very good, Jamie. No, I'm in total agreement. Total agreement. And in fact, Adam and I have met twice in person now. Once here in the state of Washington for several hours. Had a good long session. Probably good, I don't know, 6-7 hours or so. And then again, and then in California, we were hanging for a couple of days as Adam generously came down to the last Sierra Club dinner. And I invite everyone to come to the next Sierra Club dinner. We've got the information up on radish.org, May 24th. And from there, I mean, that's just going to be part of our national tour to wake up the world. I couldn't be more excited. I mean, this is simply what we have to do to build the collective intelligence and build the movement and get people talking about the plan, contributing to the plan. Absolutely, this is what has to happen. And I love your story about Star Trek. That is such because Star Trek is a utopian community. Aboard a spaceship, it's all egalitarian. It's not like somebody's like Mr. T with a whole bunch of bling. And hey, man, all right, Jamie, we'll see you soon, brother. Thanks so much. It's not like that. Everyone's wearing uniform clothing, and no one's hoarding. Everyone's basically got the same size sleeping quarters, all that good stuff. That's utopia. And that whole thing about, taking apart parts of the ship and selling it for money, that's exactly what we're doing. We're dismantling our own spaceship. Mother Earth is our spaceship. So absolutely brilliant stuff, Adam. I agree with you, Jamie. Adam and I need to work together. So Adam, I reach out my hand. I give you a hug. We are on the same team. Let's have a bake sale. Let's totally have a bake sale. I offer you, you can lead a series of conversations on Radish. I'll participate with you, help you get them started. In fact, we can have hangouts about how to get it all started. We can have this whole conversation as recorded hangouts that we share with the world. See, that's collective intelligence. And that way other people can learn how to, come together and how to join us. Let's show them, yeah, I think that'd be super cool. So let's do all that. So great stuff. I want to thank Jamie for your leadership there. And wow. Well, this has been awesome. I'm ready to wrap. Want to give you gentlemen the last word. No hurry. So take your time and say whatever else needs to be said. And then I think we can like Jamie said, take a nap, and then we can resume. Okay. Go on unmute.
Hey, so Jamie, I'm gonna send you an email, and Jamie and I will get together and talk. And like I said, I'm not very well versed in the computer, and so if I have to start my own program, it'll be a learning curve, and I think that, I don't know, we're on the same page, so maybe, I don't know, we'll see, we'll talk. Looking forward to this.
All right, great stuff, everyone. I want to thank everyone for participating and everyone for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone next time. Okie doke, and we'll see you soon. And Adam, you and I will be talking. All right, talk to y'all soon. Thanks. Take care. Bye for now.